Hey y'all, it's my review for the Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip Season 3, Episodes 1 through 3. Yes, I'm doing 3 episodes and 1 review. I'm being ambitious. Y'all know I like to keep my reviews in the 15-20 minute range, but get comfortable because it's going to be at least 40 minutes. And while y'all watching, make sure y'all hit that subscribe button as well as that little bell to make sure y'all know whenever my videos come up. Thank you very much. So, I watched the first 3 episodes on Peacock. Totally entertained. The casting is great. I mean, Thailand, it's bringing me back to when I went to Thailand. I went to Phuket, Chiang Mai, and Bangkok. These ladies, they're in Phuket. If you've ever been to Phuket before, it's kind of like the Miami version of Thailand. I remember when this cast was announced, a lot of people on social media was like, it's gonna be whack, it's gonna be boring. Tinsley was on it at first, and when she dropped out and they added Portia, I was like, brilliant. That is exactly what this show needed. And as y'all can see, Portia is definitely the star. We will get into that, but I thoroughly enjoyed all 3 episodes. I hate how Peacock gives us 3 episodes at once because as reviewers, it's a lot. You know, y'all know I go in depth in my reviews. I analyze everything. So if I leave anything out, I'm sorry. I mean, just put it in the comments and we'll talk about it. But let's get into the episode. So like I said, they open the episode with Portia, who is without a doubt the star of the season. She's basically narrating the season, and I'm glad to see her back. She's just like a joy. This is a good rebrand for her after that disaster of a spinoff she had. We then get to the Salt Lake City girls. Salt Lake City girls. Anyway. It looks like they're in a good place. Their season just wrapped on this timeline. Currently, they're probably not seeing it for each other, especially after that reunion. We're then in New York City with Leah as she's getting ready for the trip. This is an opportunity for Leah to do a rebrand as well after her disastrous season of Roni. So disastrous that they had to do a whole rebrand of the show. Child, and now we're in Potomac and Candace and Giselle are kikiing on the phone as they're getting ready. It's just so disingenuous, especially the place they're in now. Now, I know this was after the season wrap, before their season aired, so she didn't get to see what Giselle said behind the scenes. But still, Candace had venom for Giselle. She doesn't trust her, but she's gonna go on a trip with her. It just seemed fake on her part because it's not like a Karen and Giselle thing where they're like frenemies. Like, Candace actually hates Giselle. And the things she's called her, like, I just don't understand how you go back from that. But yeah, they're in a good place for now. For now. And last but not least, we're with the Miami girls, the Cuban freaking frag, Alexia and Marisol. Now, I think they're the only ones that don't know the majority of the cast. They do know Giselle though. And I noticed that Giselle, she's met at least, I think, almost all the girls on this trip. So we're also told that this trip takes place 2 days after Jen Shah's guilty plea. So Heather's gonna be in the hot seat as soon as she lands in Thailand around those women. So next we see all the ladies are arriving in Thailand after that long ass flight. Let me tell you, the trip to Thailand, 14 hours to get to Beijing. That was my layover. And then I want to say 2.5 hours to get to Phuket. So about roughly 16 to 17 hours. Ooh, it is a long ass flight, y'all, but it is worth it. Thailand is beautiful. Again, I went to 3 cities in, I want to say 6 or 7 days. I spent about 2.5 days in Phuket, 3 days in Chiang Mai, and like a day and a half in Bangkok. And also, y'all, the American dollar goes far there, so you can have a luxury trip if you save enough. Ooh, so we get to this house, y'all, and we immediately see the Peacock budget. 3 floors, 8 bedrooms, 8 baths. Pepsi, who throughout the season will be their house servant slash butler slash tour guide of the trip. And he is a character, and I'm glad he's very opinionated and will have his own confessional. So then we get to the arrivals of the ladies. Whitney technically got there first, but it looks like her driver dropped her off like way at the bottom of the hill. So she's just trekking upward. Giselle gets there first, then Alexia, then Candace, then Whitney finally gets there. Heather, she gets there and she is immediately grilled. Like, she doesn't even get to sit her bags down. Like, before Giselle starts asking her, so what about Jen Shah? Like, she's been lying to you. How do you feel about that? Damn, Giselle. The other ladies start chiming in too, but as we can see, Heather is still in ride or die mode for Jen. Meanwhile, we see Portia, Leah, and Marisol. They're all in the car together headed to the house. Marisol already got the party started, of course, because her personality is alcohol. Like, we see the absolute bottle. It's almost at the bottom. During that whole trip, 16 hours, she probably went through that bottle. So then a little later, we see all the ladies have finally arrived to the house. Everyone's exchanging pleasantries. Pepsi's just giving them a tour of the house. As the ladies are outside, we see Alexa and Marisol kind of speaking Spanglish to each other, and Giselle's ears perk up, and not her telling them to speak English around her. Like, is she for real? I was so taken aback by that. Is she really that ignorant? And then production shows it from Giselle's point of view as like her version of translating what she thinks they're talking about, which is funny, but it's just really uncomfortable and offensive. Now, I'm surprised that Marisol and Alexa didn't cuss her ass out. They just laughed at it. But anyway, Pepsi is showing the ladies their rooms, and this time around, the rooms were already pre-selected for everybody, so there's no fights. It looks like Portia got the best room. Like, this is amazing. Like, I'm pretty sure when they added her last minute, Peacock sweetened the pot. We cut to her confessional, and she's like, ooh, bravo, y'all trying to woo me back, huh? The producer, who's clearly a black woman, is frustrated with Portia and says, girl, for the last time, this is Peacock. When I tell you I'll holler, at this point I'm like, can Portia please come back to Atlanta? I know y'all don't like her, but she's good TV. We then cut to Leah's room, and she obviously got the worst room. And I think it's the only room without a view. Like, the shower doesn't even have a curtain around it. She then goes over to Pepsi and says, Pepsi, why do you hate me? Like, knowing full well that production chose these rooms for the ladies. And to be honest, Leah, like, she has no type of pull. Like, you're not on the franchise anymore, and you're lucky they asked you to be a part of this. So you should just take what you can get. Beggars can't be choosers. Meanwhile, in the Miami girls' room, we see that Marisol is suffering because her stomach is feeling bad. Alexia suggests she drink some water. She's like, what's that? She only drinks coffee and liquor. Girl, that is the reason why your stomach hurt, because you drink alcohol every day, morning, noon, and night. We're with Giselle and Portia now, and I gotta say, they are quite the duo and very entertaining. I know the ones that can't stand them are livid right now, but they're carrying the show. Portia mentions to Giselle that she noticed online that everyone thought that she would get into it with Candace on this trip. And look, I was one of those people because, you know, back around, what was it, like the end of season 5, beginning of season 6, Portia and Giselle had that show together. I think it was called Bravo Happy Hour. And Portia was on Monique's side in the fight with her and Candace. And Candace felt some type of way about it because, you know, she got Twitter fingers. So, of course, I was like, ooh, they put Portia and Candace on the same show. I see what production was trying to do. Portia and Giselle are then gossiping about Heather and Jen Shaw's relationship, and it is pure comedy. Like, Portia's like, damn, you talking about that girl? This is the first day. Do you even know Heather's last name? Giselle's like, Heather Graham? Portia's like, Heather Graham and Whitney Houston. It was either Portia or Giselle that said Heather Graham, but it was funny. Meanwhile, we're with Candace as she's telling Leah and Whitney about her fake relationship with Giselle, and she's just going along to get along. So it's lunchtime now, and a few of the ladies are downstairs just waiting on everybody else to come. Right now, it's Heather, Portia, and Giselle just kikiing. They see Leah coming up, and then Heather makes a joke saying, oh, we should totally get Leah drunk. And that's weird for her to say, being that Leah can't drink. So then when Leah sits down, Giselle immediately throws Heather under the bus and says, Leah, if you had a drink, what would happen? And Leah said, it would ruin my life. And then she says, well, Heather, she's telling us that we should get you to drink. Heather is blindsided right now, and Leah's just like, oh, you shady bitch. And Heather makes it worse for herself by telling Leah that she read her book. Because in her book, she's talking about her struggles with alcohol, addiction. So why would she say that to Leah if she knows this information? So as Heather's tripping over her words, trying to dig herself out of that hole, Giselle sits back and sips her beverage. She ain't shit. We're checking in with the Miami girls again since they're still not downstairs for lunch, and Marisol thinks that more alcohol will help her stomach feel better since it will numb the pain. All right, so then Leah, we see, is telling the other girls about what Heather did, and we just know that later this is going to be a bigger deal. The ladies are all finally at the table together, and the topic of conversation, they're asking Portia, just about her experience on Housewives as the OG person on the trip. And I just realized, oh yeah, like Portia's been on Atlanta for like from season 5 to 13. Leah then chimes in about her experience on Roni, and she acknowledges that the season was a disaster. They're all asking her, is her franchise coming back? And she says she doesn't know. I mean, it's coming back, just not with her on it. Lord, and here goes Giselle putting Heather in the hot seat again by asking her about her relationship with Whitney. So this causes Heather and Whitney to go at it. They're going back and forth. And y'all, I'm not doing it for this show. Any argument between Heather and Whitney is going to be a smooth fast forward because I don't care. Like, they went back and forth for so long that the other ladies had to change the topic because they were tired of hearing it. Now imagine how we feel as the audience watching Salt Lake City. The shit is exhausting because they're arguing about nothing. So afterwards, all the ladies get a break before dinner. We're with Pepsi now as he has his own confessional and he's giving his first impressions of all the ladies. He says nice things about everybody, but I can tell he's not feeling Leah. So then it's dinner time. All the ladies are downstairs with the exception of Candace, who's still getting ready. She's taking too long, so they all leave her. I don't think it's a big deal because, I mean, she knew the time they were all leaving and she's not stranded, and I'm sure production can get her a separate shuttle there. So in the car ride there, in Leah's car, she's telling all the ladies what Heather told her when they first all got to the house, and it connects the dots to what Giselle told her earlier. Like, why would Heather, knowing that Leah is an alcoholic, like, why would she try to fuck up her sobriety? And it looks like she's trying to fuck up her sobriety for her entertainment. So in this situation, Heather is wrong, and Leah has a right to be upset. So all the ladies are at the table for dinner, and we see Alexia and Marisol speaking Spanish, and here goes Giselle ignorant ass again saying, we're not gonna be doing that. Why is she policing them speaking Spanish? No one else cares. And she says she just wants to be included. I'm like, it doesn't matter if you want to be included. Meanwhile, Candace arrives, and it seems like she's not mad that they all left her. Honestly, that would be stupid if she was. We get back to the table, and they're looking over the menu. We see Marisol and Alexia speaking Spanish again, and Giselle's head goes up like a hawk. Now, before she says anything, I think someone said that they love their Spanglish. Giselle then goes, well, don't you want to know what they're saying? And I agree with Candace. She says, it doesn't matter because when we watch the show back, we'll see it in subtitles that they were talking about us. I'm like, thank you. And Giselle, if you're so curious about what they're saying, then learn fucking Spanish. So the topic changes and Giselle takes charge by starting a game with the ladies, with them all saying their best and worst first impressions of each other. She's working overtime. She starts with herself and she says her best first impression was with Leah, which I'm sure she'll regret later. And she says her worst first impression was Heather. Now, this is the third time in one episode that Giselle has come for Heather. Leave that girl alone. So then Leah takes this opportunity to call Heather out about, you know, trying to get her to drink in front of all the ladies. And of course, Heather denies it, just like Whitney told Leah. Heather just isn't built for this, and this is only day one. I'm hoping she could get through this. She apologizes to Leah, but once it looks like some of the ladies are piling on Heather, Leah gets up, hugs her, and forgives her and says, you know what, we're good, let's just move forward. So we get to Marisol's worst first impression, who she says is Giselle for policing her speaking Spanish. And then Giselle, she gives a real bullshit excuse. Like, she throws her daughters into it and says, well, my daughters are fluent in Spanish and then they're always talking about me. No, Giselle, no. But Giselle actually apologizes to them, and I will say, thankfully, she hasn't said anything since. Giselle is lucky she's not white, because it definitely gave a, oh, you're in America, speak English. And the gag is they're not even in America. Ooh, but when Alexia weighs in, she clocks Giselle immediately. She says, well, I think you asked questions as a way for you not to talk about yourself. And Candace, you would have thought she was in a sermon. She was just like, yes. I'm like, Alexia called it. At this point, I was like, okay, I'm glad the Miami girls are here. Because at first I was like, oh, we could have got some Beverly Hills girls for this. But yeah, Candace feels vindicated because that is exactly what Giselle's MO is. We then move on to Whitney's best first impression, which is Candace. And she says she thought she wouldn't like Candace at first. Candace asked her why, and it's because Whitney watched her on the show and how she terrorized Ashley while she was pregnant. Candace is giving her revisionist history of what happened. I remember she shamed Ashley through her entire pregnancy journey. I remember I watched season 3. When she was keeping track of the coronas Ashley was having, she called her a bed wench that season, a slave, a roach. I'm just saying, like, if it was anybody else who used the term roach on Potomac, like, the show would be canceled, like the backlash. But Candace can do it, It's fine. But I digress. Portia is then giving her take on Candace as a viewer of the show. And, you know, Candace is crunchy in the face as Portia is talking about it. She doesn't even want to let her finish. But Candace tells Portia that she knew what she was saying and it was her intention to be mean. And Portia was like, oh, okay, well, you was being a bitch then. I'm not sure if she called her a bitch, but maybe it was a see you next Tuesday because they bleeped it out. Anywho, Candace gives her a death glare, and then we fast forward in Shonda Rhimes fashion of all the drama that's going to happen in the season, all the ladies fighting. Then we get back to the table. Before Candace can respond to Portia, I'm guessing a bug was at the table. All the ladies are screaming and jumping away from the table. And that is where the first episode ends. I think they edited out the back and forth between Portia and Candace for whatever reason. But anyway, let's get to episode 2. So it's day 2 of the trip. We found out that Leah's in charge of the excursion for the day, which is they're going to an elephant sanctuary. Now, when you go to Thailand, you gotta see the elephants. It is a great experience. It's fun. A little messy, but we'll see later on in the episode. We're with the Miami girls, and I just dare Marisol not to talk about alcohol for an entire episode. Because it's not possible. Just looking at the way Marisol drinks, the only time I drank like that was during lockdown because drinking was the only thing to do and eat. Anyway, we're checking in with some of the other ladies. Leah is PMSing. I guess, thanks for letting us know that. Heather, she's worried about everyone liking her. What else is new? We found out that Candace is organizing activities for the evening. They're doing dinner in a Ladyboy show. Again, something else that you need to do when you go to Thailand. Seeing the Ladyboys is just like going to a drag show. Portia then enters the room, and of course all eyes on her. She really went to the school of Nene. She doesn't even have to say anything, she just has a presence. We noticed that there's some tension between her and Candace, most likely because she was on Monique's side during the whole altercation. When they eventually get into it, I'm curious what Candace's excuse is going to be since she won't be able to hide behind her colorism shield. So they're all on their way to the elephant sanctuary, and we see Alexia telling Leah her story, about her husband. And I'm only mentioning this because it comes into play later. They all arrive to their destination, and this is exactly how I remember it. Like, you see the elephants, like you're able to go into the water, you can smear mud on them. I wouldn't go into the water because the elephants poop in the water, and also when they absorb the water in their trunks, they can blow it at you, and it's almost like a fire hose being shot at you. Just take the necessary precautions because you're either going to step in shit or get elephant snot blown in your face. So we see them all get into the water, and they're playing in the mud until they see the elephant take a dump. Then they all go running for the hills. So afterwards, they're all having lunch, and the topic of conversation, it's normally what they all talk about on the Girls Trip franchise, the best and worst thing about being a housewife. Portia starts first, and she says after she had her daughter, she was suffering with postpartum depression at the beginning of the next season. She said she didn't want to film at first, but then she calls out a producer for comforting her and helping her get through the season. We then hear from Marisol about her experience, and I gotta say, this is the first time she said something substantive that has not involved alcohol. She's talking about her mom, and during the beginning seasons of Miami, that the producers fell in love with her mom, but she was afraid to have her on camera because her face was deformed from having all the injections. So when the audience fell in love with her, she was happy about that. They show us a clip from 11 years ago, and Marisol looks great. She needs to stop messing with her face because the irony is she's heading in her mom's footsteps. It's Leah's turn now, and she starts breaking down immediately, saying that she had hesitation even coming on the Thailand trip. And this is mostly because of her experience on her last season of Roni. She said that her grandmother was dying, she was at Ramona's for 5 days, and production wouldn't let her leave. Now they cut to the confessionals with some of the other ladies, and Whitney says that they had the same production company as Roni, and that would never happen. Portia says that nothing would stop her from seeing her dying family members. And Giselle says that Leah needs to take responsibility for her choices. I agree with Giselle, and I saw that season of Roni, and I'm thinking she wanted somebody to force her to leave instead of her just leaving on her own. Now she says she left eventually, but it was too late and her grandmother died, and it was traumatic for her. Side note, I totally forgot Leah had a daughter until she mentioned it in her confessional. It's a whole crying session right now. Candace, of course, is crying. Portia then breaks the mood by making everybody laugh by saying something silly, of course. They're all leaving the sanctuary. In Candace's car, she's disclosing to the other ladies she's having some issues in her marriage, more so concerning time management and how Chris works a lot. Hey, of all the white men she chose a broke one. sorry for you. As the ladies arrive to the house, it's an overall consensus everyone had a good day. It was no drama, no fights. Portia asking for KFC from Pepsi, that is totally me. And y'all, KFC overseas, they're different in every country. Like, the one I had in Paris was delicious. I still want to go to the one in Jamaica because Candy, you know how Candy and Marlo was acting. I'm not sure. I never had KFC in Thailand, but I'm not opposed to it. We're with Heather and Whitney now as they're talking about their drama. Fast forward. But it does look like after this conversation, they're finally in a better place. Well, back then. So it's later in the evening now. All the ladies are getting dressed. Candace is determined to make us listen to her basic ass music as she's getting ready. They don't leave her this time, but they arrive at the destination. And since it's Ladyboy night, Candace decides to give all the other ladies Ladyboy names, or just drag names. So she gives herself the name Patti LaBelle, which Giselle disagrees with. She doesn't think Candace is petty. But the only shady name she gave to the girls in the group are the black girls on the trip. She gives Giselle the name She Need a Man, and Portia, She Take a Man. I mean, okay, it's very shady, but she could have gave the other women shady names too. Like, especially Marisol. You're gonna name her Crystal Ball when this chick drinks every hour on the hour? And she don't know Portia like that, so I would like to say, for the record, she started with Portia. Just saying. And let me give Candace some Ladyboy names that I came up with. Shanita Beatdown, Molly Watt, and A Lot of Tears. Those are my names for her. Anywho, Portia is unfazed by Candace because she's from the Real Housewives of Atlanta. That type of shade is child's play. We then cut to a joint confessional with Giselle and Portia, and they're very funny together, and they're just laughing at the shade that Candace threw at them. So they're all at the dinner table now, and Candace poses the question of how the show affects people's marriages. Afterward, for whatever reason, we get on Portia about the whole rumor that she took somebody's man. And of course, Candace was leading the conversation on that. Portia clocks what Candace is trying to do, and she tells Candace, well, you tell me what the rumor is. After she gives us the cliff notes of what she think happened, Portia gives us her side of the story. She said that production brought Fallon on, and when she met Simon, she said she didn't know him, but she knew him from somewhere at the time. Fast forward, when Fallon cheated on Simon and they got a divorce, she sends her condolences via DM to Simon. Now, how long they had this relationship where they can DM each other, she doesn't mention that. But then Simon says he wants to meet up with her. She's fine with this, but she says, before we do meet up, I need you to send me your divorce documents. And she says he did, but the divorce wasn't finalized. And then when they went out, they were dating, and they got engaged within less than a month. Now, Portia is an opportunist, and I like her, but we're gonna call a spade a spade. She capitalized on that. She saw a pot of gold there and took it. And luckily for her, Simon is fame hungry, so it worked out for both of them. We then hear some of the ladies talking about in their confessionals, and Whitney says, well, I ain't gonna say nothing because I took a man myself. Now you can tell that none of the ladies at the table watched Salt Lake City, or else they would have brought that up to Whitney. Alexia chimes in about marriage, and Giselle wants to know the tea since she hasn't heard the story before. So as Alexia is telling her story, we see Leah at the end of the table being a bitch, saying she heard it before and it's a snooze fest. Just being rude. Because if Leah was talking about her sobriety journey and someone said they're bored, I'm sure she wouldn't like it. She then has the nerve to say, can you guys get shots? Can you get drunk? Ugh, I'm bored. She clearly wants attention. So Marisol, she's coming to bat for her friend. She's like, it's an interesting story. And I'm sure Marisol has heard it 100 times. Alexia tells Leah, I mean, we could go back and talk about micro penises if you want. And then Marisol calls Leah out and says, well, yeah, she said it was boring. So Leah gets mad, lies, and then takes it out on Marisol by saying, don't get mad at me because your stomach hurts. You're the one drinking vodka every morning. So some of the ladies are taken aback by this. They leave it on a cliffhanger, and that is where episode 2 ends. Leah's a bitch. Let's move on to episode 3, shall we? So we continue at the table, and Giselle jumps in and says, Leah, that's not fair, because I never heard the story before. We then cut to Alexia and Marisol's joint confessional, and Marisol says Leah has some nerve calling her an alcoholic. She's projecting. I didn't have to quit alcohol. You did. Look, she has to be an asshole for me to be on Giselle and Marisol's side. Giselle then tells Leah, well, what would you like to talk about? So she has the floor now and she says, oh, I don't know. It's because you're boring. Leah has now made herself a target for Giselle because Giselle keeps coming for her, and I don't mind. And I agree with Portia. Like, if you're bored, you're not engaging with nobody, then go home. Clearly, you're here for the free trip and the check. So some time passed by, and they've been at this table for a while. Like, are they leaving anytime soon? Like, this activity was definitely a bust, and hey, it's Candace's night, so I'm not surprised. And speaking of surprises, Candace has a surprise for the ladies as she gets up from the table and meet the Ladyboys in the back as they're getting ready to perform for everybody. Meanwhile, we're with Marisol. She's still suffering from her stomach pain. She gets up and goes to talk to the on-site medic, and she's telling him that I drink every day year-round. Like, this is so weird. Well, maybe that's the problem, that you drink that much and that's what's affecting your stomach. And then he says, well, it sounds like an ulcer. And that makes sense because, I mean, isn't that how you get ulcers? By drinking that much? I mean, educate me in the comments. I mean, it looks like it lines up. So then later the dancers finally come out. They do like an off-brand version of Single Ladies. I feel bad for the dancer who fell, but she recovered real quickly. Afterwards, Candace comes out in stage wear, dressed like a disco loofah, performing one of her songs. She's also clearly lip syncing because the track stops, and then what's funny is like they're all clapping. She's like, oh, it's not over yet. So it's finally over. The ladies give Candace some courtesy claps, and then they all get up to dance with the Ladyboys. Don't give Candace any more nights because this was definitely a bust. Now in the car ride home, Giselle and Portia are talking about how Candace calls herself petty, and Giselle says Candace is more so reactionary. Like, you don't see her picking on people or starting shit. And I agree, those are the things that Giselle does. So it's now day 3, it's a yacht day hosted by Alexia. We see all the ladies getting ready, and Giselle is saying that she was really surprised by Leah's behavior the other evening. I'm just glad Giselle has a new target because she was going a little bit hard on Heather. It was borderline bullying. All the ladies are getting to the van, and we see Candace with this huge ass beach hat. It's like if I put a flour tortilla on top of my thumb. That's what it looked like. On the way there, we're in the car with Portia, Giselle, Marisol, and Alexia, and they're all talking about how shitty of an attitude Leah has. They are clocking her, and I agree. Leah's personality is peak white woman who wants to be woke. So they arrive at the yacht. I love it. It's beautiful, 5 stars. When I tell y'all it was a shit show from the moment they stepped foot on the yacht to the moment they got off, oh my God. Pepsi then lets the ladies know that he's going back to the villa. Portia then asks Leah in front of everybody, do you want to go with him? Leah is annoyed by this, and then we cut to our next joint confessional, which is Leah and Candace. And of course they bonded. Because they're both assholes, and Candace stands that is just my opinion. Deal with it. So later all the ladies are having snacks, and then producer Giselle asks Leah, are you good? Because last night was strange. Leah then takes this opportunity to comfort Giselle and Portia by saying that they were trying to use what she disclosed to them at the elephant sanctuary about having anxiety against her. Look at her trying to play the victim card after she was the asshole at dinner the previous evening. So they're going back and forth now, and there's so many fights after this that production had to make a title card using round 1 first for Leah versus Portia and Giselle. Now, I'm glad Giselle called out Leah for saying that she was bored at dinner because that's what started it all. You want us to take shots and get drunk like we're some drunk monkeys for your entertainment? I hollered because that verbiage was very intentional on Giselle's part, using the word monkeys. As Leah's defending herself, she then drags Marisol into it, which we now have round 2, Leah versus Marisol. Alexia jumps into her girl's defense, and now everybody's talking. And then you have Portia calling Marisol Marcel. I think it's funny that Portia has these ladies laughing even when they're crying or yelling at each other. Leah's now trying to play the victim. Why does everybody want me to drink? Girl, did you see her first season? And stop calling Marisol an alcoholic. It's not the read you think it is. Lord, she got me defending Marisol. If y'all watch my Miami reviews, you'll understand that. So now it's back to Portia versus Leah, and then when Candace seeing everybody calling Leah out, she tries to say that they're bullying her. Girl, shut the fuck up. Of course she's on Leah's side, and then meanwhile we see Heather, she's just quiet as a church mouse, just sitting back because she's glad nobody's on her ass for once. Child, Leah then screams at all the ladies saying that they gave her her period. All the responses that the lady said just had me hollering. Y'all, like, this is just too good. My head was spinning from the drama. Please, please keep this All-Stars format. Here go Candace again using that term bullying. Then out of nowhere, she just bursts into tears. I've been uncomfortable this entire time dealing with anxiety. I've been calling my mom crying every morning. And then she loops all this into trying to defend Leah. Girl, Emily K. Williams will tell you that defending Leah is not a hill worth dying on. And while Candace is busy being her savior, Leah's on the other side of the boat taking selfies. Now, as Candace was crying, Portia does go over to comfort her, but she does tell her that, you have anxiety, but your event was the shadiest. I mean, she has a point. And now we have Portia versus Candace. Portia tells her, is that how you get comfortable? By shading me? And then y'all notice as they're going back and forth, Candace ain't getting reckless at the mouth. I mean, she knows better. And I still think what she's saying is stupid. She's saying that Leah shouldn't be penalized for expressing her discomfort. But that's not what happened. She was just being a rude bitch at dinner. The conversation then cools down a bit, and then the topic is about anxiety and sobriety. And Heather then chimes in that she doesn't mind destroying people's sobriety, if that's what they want. After she said that, it's as if a record scratched. She's basically saying that she doesn't mind doing anything for a friend, even if it's to their detriment. She needs therapy immediately. So the ladies go downstairs in the yacht for a Cuban-style lunch because it's hosted by Alexia. They then play a non-shady game hosted by the Miami girls, and they're just learning Cuban slang. The moment, though, is too peaceful for Giselle, so she decides to start some shit between Whitney and Heather. Leah then chimes in and makes it worse by telling Heather what Whitney said behind her back, even though Whitney and Heather made a pact to get along with each other on day 2. Again, y'all, I'm fast forwarding because I'm not covering any fights between Heather and Whitney. Been there, done that. Giselle's messy ass is ready to move on, but then meanwhile we see Heather in tears, Whitney's in tears, and oh my God, they brought up the black eye. Nope, not doing it. Next. So then the ladies hear about the black eye. They're all making their own assessments, especially Giselle. She basically says Jen Shaw did it, and Heather's covering it up so Jen won't get more time added to her sentence. The ladies then disperse to two different sides of the boat, but then we see Portia and Giselle asking Whitney to show them a picture of Heather's black eye. It's the messiness of it all. So now we're with Candace, and she's talking to some of the ladies, and she's saying how terrible Giselle is and what she did to her husband, Chris. So Leah hears this information. She confronts Giselle about it because Giselle called her out earlier. She's like, you got the nerve to call me out, but you accuse her husband of this? Giselle's a little taken aback by this because her and Candace agreed that they weren't going to talk about the past. But then she tells Leah that it's a lie. So then Candace comes in, and now they're going back and forth. I'm thinking this is our 6th or 7th fight on the boat. Also, side note, Leah calling Giselle neck in her confessional, it was just a little weird to me. What did y'all think about that? Like, it didn't land the same way as opposed to when Candace said it. Anyway, Giselle and Candace agree to disagree, and they continue with their fake truce. Whew, child, so the yacht day is finally over, and the overall consensus of the group was the day was a disaster. And on the way back to the house, we're with Portia, Giselle, Alexia, and Marisol, and they're all just having a key about Heather's black eye. They're just laughing at her expense. So they all arrive back to the house. We see Candace telling Leah how awful of a person Giselle is, but she decided to travel with her and be fake with her. And then we cut to Heather, who's reading Portia's book. She's saying, once upon a time, not long ago, I was a hoe, and I'm admitting it. What does Heather know about Mariah Lynn? When I tell y'all this was just such a wacky ass episode, we then come back to Candace, who's giving Leah advice to check Giselle the next time she sees her. And then speaking of Giselle, but with her and Portia, as they're taking shots and having fun, not worried about what Candace is saying. And that is where episode 3 ends. Whew! I did 3 episodes back to back. I wish y'all knew how long this took. I mean, y'all see the sun is setting, right? But I will say I am very pleased with this season so far. The ladies are bringing it. It's only going to get crazier. Hopefully they'll only give us 1 episode this week because they're trying to kill me. I still have to get to Jersey. But yeah, y'all let me know what y'all thought about these 3 episodes, what stood out to you. And with that, make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all for the next episode. Bye.